All right, ready to dive into a career that's way more than just sirens and flashing lights.
Let's do it.
Today we're talking about security alarm investigators.
Sounds intriguing.
You sent in some interesting info from RoleCatcher, and honestly, I'm picturing like a Sherlock Holmes crossed with a tech whiz solving crimes through security cameras.
I love that image, but the reality is even more interesting. This job is all about blending that cutting-edge tech with, good old-fashioned human instinct.
Okay, so less magnifying glass, more high-tech
You
gadgets.
got it. Think about it. An alarm goes off, could be anything, right?
Yeah.
It's the investigator who has to look at the data, the surveillance footage, and even trust their gut to figure out if there's a real threat or just a raccoon getting into the trash.
Okay, so more to it than just watching a screen all day. The RoleCatcher Guide mentions this unique blend of excitement and satisfaction, but it also throws in those high stress levels. Is that the trade-off for all the action?
That's the heart of it. This isn't your typical 9 to 5 job. The material really highlights that you're dealing with potential crime scenes, often under pressure, and often at odd hours. It takes someone who thrives in that environment, someone cool-headed, decisive.
They even mention needing good physical fitness, which
Yeah.
seems a little unexpected for, monitoring alarms. Is there a chase scene element I'm missing here?
It's more about being ready for anything. Imagine you're inspecting a huge property after an alarm, you're navigating stairs, maybe a dark basement, responding quickly to whatever you find. And yeah, the guide even mentions needing to be okay with wearing a bulletproof vest. This job definitely goes beyond a desk.
Wow, sounds intense.
Yeah.
But demanding jobs usually come with some perks. What's the payoff for that commitment?
Think high demand, competitive salaries, and a pretty clear path for advancement. Plus, with technology constantly evolving, there's always something new to learn, which keeps things interesting, wouldn't you say?
Definitely. Speaking of learning, this seems like one of those fields where you need both, like serious tech skills, A&D, the ability to talk someone off a ledge after a break-in. The Rollcatcher Guide lists as alarm systems, surveillance, A&D, customer service as crucial. Which one is the absolute make or break for someone starting out?
That is the million-dollar question. And while, yes, tech expertise is a given, it's the communication skills that can really make you stand out.
Really? More so.
Think about it. They're often the reassuring voice after a super stressful event, the clear communicator gathering information, and the liaison with law enforcement. So yeah, communication is key.
So you're saying being able to explain a complex security breach calmly is as vital as knowing how to, code one in the first place.
100%. And what I find interesting is that the guide doesn't just list these skills, it actually maps out your potential career trajectory. Like you might start as an entry-level investigator, primarily responding to alarms and monitoring systems, but gain some experience, and you could be leading investigations, analyzing data, even heading a team.
That's what I'm talking about, room to grow. The guide even mentions becoming a chief security alarm investigator now. That has a nice ring to it.
Right, it does. And it means you've made it to the top. You're overseeing a whole department, setting security strategies, and advising clients at the highest level.
So not a one-size-fits-all career path.
Definitely not.
This is already eye-opening, and we're just getting started. You're right about that. It's like this whole field is straight out of a sci-fi movie sometimes.
Totally.
But before we get lost in a world of futuristic crime-fighting gadgets, let's get back to reality for a sec. We've talked about the skills and the career path, but what does a typical day even look like for a security alarm investigator? Is there even such a thing as typical in this line of work?
That's the thing, there really isn't. It's kind of what makes it exciting.
Right. Okay, I'm listening. Walk me through a hypothetical scenario. Let's say I just clocked in for my shift as a security alarm investigator. What's the first hour look like?
Okay, so picture this. You're starting your day, maybe reviewing some incident reports from the night shift, catching up on the latest security alerts,
Sounds familiar.
and your team is comparing notes, someone's got the coffee brewing,
Okay, so far so good.
and suddenly, BBBRRRTTT, an alarm signal goes off. It's coming from a high-end jewelry store downtown.
Okay, now we're talking. My heart just skipped a beat. What's next?
Well, first things first, you gotta verify the alarm.
Right, got to make sure it's not just a false alarm.
Exactly. Is it a motion sensor, a door breach, a silent alarm straight from the vault? You're pulling up the security camera feeds for that location.
So you're like eyes glued to the screen, trying to see what's going on.
Yeah, and you're probably trying to reach the store owner at the same time, get a feel for what they might know, rule out those false alarms.
Okay, but let's say the owner doesn't answer and the security footage shows a shattered window display.
Oh.
This is the real deal.
Now your adrenaline's pumping, but you gotta stay focused. You're immediately alerting the police, giving them all the details, the address, the alarm type, any descriptions you can get from that footage.
So you're like the first responder in a way.
In a way, yeah. And you might actually be heading out the door soon, too.
Wait, really? I thought investigators just, well, investigated. They actually go to the scene.
Oh, yeah, especially when you're earlier in your career. You're the eyes and ears on the ground, sometimes even before the police get there. Your job is to secure the scene as best as you can, observe everything, and document every single detail.
It's got to be a lot of pressure making sure you don't miss anything.
It is. Your observations and reports, they're often part of a much bigger investigation, which could lead to an arrest, an insurance claim, or even just peace of mind for that business owner.
Wow, I'm starting to understand that high stress level is part of the job description now.
Right. It's not just about the technical stuff. It's about keeping a cool head when everything's on the line.
So there's the adrenaline rush, but then also the intense focus and pressure.
Exactly. It's a unique kind of rewarding, though, knowing your work directly impacts people's sense of security.
I can see that. Kind of like a detective, but with way more tech involved.
Yeah, and don't forget about those irregular hours. It's not your typical Monday through Friday gig.
Right. Evenings, weekends, holidays, whenever those alarms decide to go off.
You gotta be ready to roll at a moment's notice. Definitely takes a certain kind of person to thrive in that always-on environment.
But hey, think of all the stories you could tell at parties.
Haha. Yeah, that's one way to look at it.
Oh, sorry, got to take this call?
Yeah.
Just another day saving the city, no big deal.
That's right. You'd be the life of the party. But in all seriousness, that unpredictability is a big part of what draws people to this job. You're always on your toes, never quite knowing what the day will bring.
And that probably goes hand in hand with the tech, which is always changing.
Absolutely. The days of those simple tripwires and motion detectors are long gone.
So what are we talking about now? Lasers? Holograms?
Think facial recognition software, AI-powered surveillance, biometric locks. The tech is evolving faster than we can keep up with sometimes.
Wow. That is a lot to keep up with. So does that mean that the human element is becoming less important in this field then?
That's a great question and something a lot of people are asking right now. And while tech is definitely a vital part of it, it's still the human eye that can spot the odd thing, the data stream.
Like a glitch in the matrix or something?
Exactly. It's still the human brain that connects the dots and anticipates threats in a way that technology hasn't quite mastered yet.
So it's more of a partnership.
Right. The technology provides the tools, but it's up to the human investigator to use them effectively.
I like that. Kind of like Sherlock Holmes with his magnifying glass. But now is high-tech gadgets and algorithms.
Exactly. You need both the clues and the detective's intuition to put it all together.
Okay, speaking of mysteries, I'm curious about how people even get into this field. The RoleCatcher Guide mentioned a few different options, right?
It did, and it's more diverse than you might think, actually.
Okay, so like, what are we talking about here?
Well, a high school diploma is a must, obviously. And from there, some people get experience in related fields first, like maybe security guard work or even customer service roles where staying calm under pressure is really important.
Okay, so you don't necessarily need a fancy degree in, like, I don't know, alarm science?
Uh-huh. I wish that was a real thing.
Right.
But as you move up that career ladder, having a relevant college degree can make you a much stronger candidate.
So, like, what kind of degrees are we talking about here? Criminal justice, computer science.
You're on the right track. A criminal justice degree gives you a really good foundation in law enforcement procedures, investigation techniques, even things like the psychology of criminal behavior.
Oh, wow, that's interesting.
Yeah, it's all super useful in this field.
And computer science would be for that, like tech edge, right? Designing those systems instead of just responding to them.
Exactly, and having that deeper understanding of the technology makes you a really valuable asset, especially as things become even more tech-driven.
Okay, so we've got the on-the-job experience route, the criminal justice path, and the tech-savvy computer science option.
Yeah.
Any other avenues people might consider, right? Those certifications, they sound pretty important from what you were saying earlier.
Yeah, they are, definitely. It's like, imagine showing up to investigate a high-tech heist with just a magnifying glass.
Okay, point taken. So what kind of certifications are we talking about here?
Well, the RoleCatcher Guide highlighted a couple of big ones. First up, you've got the Certified Protection Professional Certification, or CPP for short.
CPP, got it.
This one's recognized internationally, so it's a pretty big deal in the security world. Basically, it shows you've got a solid understanding of security management, the principles and best practices.
So it's like a stamp of approval, like this person really knows their stuff.
Exactly. Then there's the Certified Alarm Technician Certification, or CA.
CK.
And this one's interesting because it comes in different levels, kind of like earning your black belt, but in alarm
I
systems.
don't like that.
Yeah, so the higher the level, the more complex the systems you're qualified to work on.
So someone with like a CT certification
Okay.
is handling the high security vaults, top secret government facilities, that kind of thing.
You got it. And honestly, that's just the tip of the iceberg. There are certifications for everything from cybersecurity to risk management. You can even specialize in investigating specific types of crimes if you want.
Wow, so many options. It's like you
Yeah,
can
yeah.
really build your own custom skill set, kind of like in those RPG video games.
Totally. And the learning never really stops in this field, which I think is pretty cool.
How so?
Well, new technologies are constantly emerging, new threats are always popping up. You really got to stay ahead of the curve if you want to be successful.
It sounds like this is a career for people who are kind of addicted to learning new things,
Yeah.
always up for a challenge.
100%. And that's one of the big takeaways from our deep dive today. Being a security alarm investigator is more than just a job. It's a career path with a lot of depth. There's so much potential if you're willing to put in the work.
Absolutely. We've covered a lot today, from the adrenaline rush of responding to an alarm to the really detailed investigations and even that constantly evolving world of security technology.
It's a lot to take in.
It is. But before we wrap up, I want to go back to something we talked about before, the human element. Even with all the amazing technology involved, it seems like those human skills are still what makes or breaks a good investigator.
I completely agree. It's easy to get caught up in the excitement of all the cool gadgets and tech, but at the end of the day, it's those human skills that really set great investigators apart.
Right, like their ability to connect with people, stay calm when things get stressful,
Yeah.
and think critically to solve problems. Those are the things robots can't do yet.
Exactly. That's what makes the difference.
It's that combination of tech knowledge and human intuition. That's what makes this career so interesting.
I couldn't have said it better myself.
Well, there you have it, everyone. We've come to the end of our deep dive into the world of security alarm investigators. Hopefully, we've given you a good picture of the challenges and the rewards, the skills you need, and even some ideas about the education that can help you succeed in this line of work. So as you decide if this career path is right for you, remember, as technology keeps changing, don't forget to keep building those essential human skills. Those are the things that will make you stand out and help you make a real difference in this important and rewarding field.
Well said.
And on that note, it's time for us to sign off. Thanks for joining us for another deep dive.